We are the Nerd Eternal Network.
Hello, and welcome to Blood and Stars. Well, welcome to Icons, Blood and Stars, here on the Nerd Eternal Network. I'm your GM, Jason, and with me today will be Taylor playing Muckboot.
Howdy, howdy.
Curtis playing Bloodthorn.
Hola.
Mike playing Eve, the Living Nebula.
Hello. Excuse me.
And we are one person short today, but real life just getting in the way. Alright, who remembers where we left off last time?
We had just finished a quick discussion with the philosopher?
I believe that's what he was known as.
And we had some cold shouldering with the leader of the enemy army that was also a guest of the philosopher.
No, it was an ambassador.
An ambassador.
From the hegemon of Arcturian.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm bad with the names, but
Bloodthorn had peeked into the head of one of the attackers that y'all had dealt with earlier, and you had seen an image of the Satrap scar.
but that's not who we were talking to.
No.
We were cold shouldering with the ambassador.
Right, that was the ambassador. At essentially a state dinner function sort of thing. You know, you were there, he was there, other diplomat types were there.
It might also be worth noting that we noticed some kind of superficial resemblance between the ambassador and the Count Contraxis, the old rival of Muk, who was also there representing the Galactic Council.
That's right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, well, it was like a resemblance, their species sort of resemble.
Oh yeah, not a person.
Like, like if you were comparing humans to Vulcans or something like that.
Yeah.
They both have kind of the pointy ears, if I remember right, and odd
right.
colored. Sorry, I'm trying to find my notepad.
Low budget prosthetics.
Hey, you're making me think of Deep Space Nine because I've been watching that again lately. The episode where they go back in time, and the other members of the crew don't realize that there are Klingons on the ship until they're pointed out to them, and they look at Worf and go, "Those are Klingons?"
All right.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, that was one of the funniest Deep Space Nine episodes.
Yeah, the Tribble revisiting. It looked so authentic too. They really nailed. They got the look down.
They certainly did.
Fan service with Jadzia and the
Having
old miniskirt and boots.
Yeah, having the hots for Spock.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Oh well, I'll just have to use a different notepad today. Weird. So yes, you were at dinner, and it was a formal event that they were calling an informal event. It's like the official, unofficial first meeting,
Right.
where it's more about everybody getting a feel for each other and meeting each other than really discussing any in-depth business.
I think there was some talk of asking I remember Eve invited the ambassador to examine his containment suit. But that's more of a subplot thing.
The ambassador or the philosopher?
The philosopher, definitely not the ambassador.
Oh sure, the ambassador would love to see it.
Come on to my super weapons, our second super weapon ship. Step right into the power core, please.
We've made it twice as powerful as the last one.
And yeah, when you mentioned taking out the super weapon, he looked a little disturbed.
Especially when we actually gave the name of the thing, of the nebula that was in it.
Oh yeah, good old Zed.
Banseed.
No Banseed.
But the rest of the day, you're free to return to your quarters and rest. You can tour the city. Your escort, star is kind of at your disposal. And you see plenty of other people, other hawks walking around in that armor. From a multitude of species. So how would y'all want to spend y'all's day?
That is a good question. Do we want to carouse the city?
Would he have a sense that the Philosopher might be willing to take a look at his containment suit now, or like did he how strong was the interest that the ambassador had expressed? Would it be something like, did it feel like something that he'd do right away, or just at some future date after the current business is resolved?
He would have likely made an appointment. Before you left, he'd have probably hammered out a time.
Okay.
Because he's got a lot going on, but
Yeah, sure.
But he always carves out time for his studies.
Well, I assume that Ebe does not have the notoriety he has in his home galaxy.
Maybe not Ebe specifically. Living nebulas are still a thing here.
Oh, okay. So that's still
So instead of Ebe's infamy, Ebe's got the reputation of the living nebulas to write on here.
Yeah, the living legend neck, as opposed
Instead
to,
of Eeks, it's Ooze.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of being wanted for star crimes.
Well, it's only that one species that really freaks out about him.
So far.
Or them. Ebe. That freaks out about Ebe.
But unless anyone has suggestions, he might just. Yeah, he probably would. Yeah, I don't think Eve would need much rest. So depending on what the other, what everyone else thinks, he'd certainly be open to exploring the city as he noted.
Okay.
I would have interest in staying, on target for the mission, but I don't know. We've got the Philosopher's going to give us the information that we need, and I don't think we haven't been given any reason to distrust him.
Sure.
So I kind of feel like, yeah, we've got some time to explore and get a feel for this place.
I don't think we've had a lot of time for recreation. Certainly not as a group. Now, what's Mukbu think?
Is there a public library?
There is the equivalent of it, sure.
Clearly, he's ready to party.
The Philosopher said he wrote books. I'm betting he wrote one about fighting these guys off.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go look up what publicly available information there is about what happened.
That's right. That is our mission, isn't it? To find out how they.
Muckboot
at the very
is
least.
very job-oriented right now.
He is.
Yeah. Alien
would
worlds.
like.
I see those every day.
Yeah. I think Abe will follow you unless he gets distracted by. If people come up to him and ooh and ah him, he'll be easily distracted. Abe will be easily distracted. Otherwise, he will remain on mission.
Or you're passing by a storefront.
And also maybe the zoological laws of the surrounding areas.
How so?
Because I'm in a hunter's lodge.
Oh.
That's what Muck
I'm
was
gonna
interested in.
look up what I'm allowed to hunt.
Gotcha. Of course. If you're gonna recreate, that's exactly how you wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, if we're in communication with these people once, it's gonna happen again. We're eventually going to be here alongside them.
Makes sense.
So I want to know what I can and cannot shoot.
That really should be standard operating procedure. You never know. At nighttime, we visit a different planet.
All right, so Muckboot and Eve are going out into town to look for a library. Bloodthorn, does that sound like your kind of fun?
Oh, absolutely not. Question's gonna be, will she stick with them or wander around on her own? I don't want to sidetrack and get things off target. But she will just literally go carousing about town. If nothing happens, nothing happens. I don't want to waste time, If she finds trouble, then that's a different story.
All right.
You know what I mean?
You mentioned carousing, and we're going to say Silver Shooting Star is going with you, since that might involve a bar. He's a pirate, I'm sure he drinks.
It probably would. That would be what she'd be looking for.
And as guests on this world, you've been given devices that will, let you know what is safe for you to eat or imbibe in any way.
She might even still be dressed in the gown that she wore to the dinner.
Mm-hmm.
A little fancy for walking around in the street, but this is
Right.
You're in a higher class part of town, so.
This is the tourist center.
In some ways, everybody that comes to this world is usually coming to this city, so. So you're walking around and you're seeing shops and you're seeing, other pedestrians. They, despite being another galaxy, it's not that alien to you.
Interesting.
Other
like
than
I said,
what now?
we're used to seeing aliens.
Right, you're used to hitting cosmopolitan areas.
So these aren't significantly different from a batch of unknown aliens that we might encounter.
Yeah, the only odd thing is you're not specifically recognizing really any of the species. But like if you see some of Star's people, they're basically humanoid. Their hair is like feathery instead of actually being hair. And other than her having wings, most of the rest of them have forearms. She had mentioned that her powers had mutated her.
Not Silver Shooting Star, but the Hawk Star.
Right. Starhawk.
Starhawk.
So it's like any cosmopolitan city. You see bits and pieces of different cultures and whatnot. The only difference is back home you might recognize where some of those cultures were from. Where here it's all Greek to you.
Yeah, it's not like Greek, really. No. Yeah, it's not like the forms of life communication are like at a completely different level of.
And everywhere the vast majority of tool using species are bipeds. Because it's just a good form for using tools. Opposable thumbs are the standard of the day, that sort of thing. Other than like the Minos that use tentacles. But meanwhile, Muckboot and Ebe, you managed to track down an archive. And it's very similar to a library, other than you can't take any of the books out with you.
That's fair.
But digital copies are available free from any kind of device you've got. So most people access those just from their homes or wherever. But you can go in and look at the actual physical copies. It's also a bit of a museum. So there are people coming and going from the archive, but it's more to see exhibits most of the time than to actually peruse the books.
So, Muckboot, you could have looked at the books at the library from the bar.
Good point.
I could have. But it's also important, when studying a new civilization, to see how much care they give to their records of the past. Because if we walked in here and the place was filthy, deserted, and trashed, then we are just as likely to get the truth from here as asking any random stranger at the bar.
How was the upkeep on the archives?
Pristine. The entire city, truthfully, is remarkably clean. Of course, like I said, you're in a better part of town, the best part of town, but and it's not, it's not completely flawless. This is a town. This is a city that people live in, run around in, but everything seems to be upkept pretty well. When you go into the archive, you have an archivist come up to you. At least when you move over towards kind of the book section. Yes, is there anything I can help you with? And she's looking you over because she doesn't really recognize what species you are.
Yeah, I'll say, we're new guests, or new arrivals from a separate part of the galaxy that have had a poor encounter with, and I'll give the name of, those people. And we wanted to read up on how, this side of the galaxy, how they encountered and what happened. All the publicly available, what publicly available information there is on it.
The Magellanic hegemony of Arcgen.
So, that's right, Magellanic.
Yeah, the hegemony.
Well, although whatever they refer, I assume they don't actually use the term Magellanic, but whatever.
No.
Whatever. I guess that is. Yeah. Whatever.
Each of you would get that translation as to whatever your people call the Greater Magellanic Cloud.
Gotcha.
Or Larger Magellanic Cloud. The hegemony, it tends to be what it gets to shortened to.
Yeah.
She's like, oh yes, that war was some time back. Not like it's not ancient history, but it was before her time.
Like centuries ago, as opposed to millennia.
Let's see. Yeah, it's probably been around 100 years. Some of the longer-lived species, there's still people alive who remember it. And she leads y'all back. She's chatting, Never mind the quasi-immortal species, but, we don't really count those. They just don't look at time like the rest of us do. And she leads you back. She's making small talk with Mudboot. Where are you from? What's your species like?
Relatively not smart. Incredibly reactive, though.
Dumb and touchy. It's a great combination.
You put us in a room full of geniuses, somehow we'll surprise them.
We'll outdone them every time.
But somehow, you leave us alone, and somehow we just don't make progress. But you put something in there to spark progress, and it happens rapidly.
So, I think a lot of species kind of go through
Yeah, more or less
phase
discussing,
like
we really didn't have much going on in space. We got hit by space pirates, and now suddenly we have multiple stations. Suddenly we are far more prepared than we ever were before. In less than, 5 years. In a very short span of time for our people.
It's like, oh, okay. And she nods her head. She has heard of other species like that. They were slightly isolated, so getting out into space was not a priority until some outside force made it a priority. You know, as opposed to some systems she knows of where you had multiple life-sustaining planets within one system, so they rapidly got involved in space travel.
Oh yes, and then he'll talk about the Hunters Guild because their 3 planets were close enough that with fairly basic, magnification, they could tell other things were on other planets, and how they formed a coalition very quickly. To handle, threats on their planets.
Now, at some point, she also asks Eve what he is. Or what?
Ask Eve, what are you?
Ask Eve what Eve is.
Right. So, how would he respond? Eve would say that Eve is he would introduce as a sentient nebula, that as an intelligence embodying the mists of a dead star, not identifying the dead star, of course, but that is he would say he's as he is constantly reminded, he is certainly young on a cosmic scale, perhaps even on a non-cosmic scale, it seems. Because it would certainly have occurred to Eve by now that he's been referred to as a youngster many times, usually by other cosmic entities like Zed or Xenon. And I don't know, maybe Eve's a little touchy about that, but
I'm a big boy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're so cute. I'm a big boy. Yeah, her eyes get wide. You mentioned Living Nebula. Oh. And she actually kind of straightens, not comes to attention, but straightens up, a little bit.
Is that a cosmological? He would want to know if that's a kind of cosmological phenomenon that happens in this galaxy. If nebulas come to life.
Well, not all nebulas, of course, but yes, we have living nebulas. I mean, I've never seen one myself, but we are aware of them.
And what is? Oh wait, let me do this properly. Let me see if I can get the echo effect going on here. And what is said about how such nebulas come to being?
And she gives you basically what you've heard before.
What has you heard before?
Dying. Well, no, I mean what Zed had told you.
Okay.
The dying star produces the living nebula. When the living nebula dies, it produces multiple living stars.
Well, that's a description of what happens, but how and why is that?
Oh, the way she tells it is like we're telling a bedtime story.
Yeah, very.
It's like it's more myth that she's familiar with, or story that she's familiar with, than any of the science fact behind it.
Okay, that's what Eve has come to expect. Sure, nothing so specific as the recording that good old what's his face had showed Eve before, the apparent eyewitness account of Eve's creation, Eve's consolidation. But that's fair. Eve would also probably ask if there is if there are such records that he could look up here, and he'd be happy to continue the research, do his own research, as we like to say on the internet.
Yeah, she can take you to the section with the basically the astronomy section.
Yeah, as long as Muckboot doesn't raise an objection to me going off script, but that's what we do. And of course.
Well, Muckboot's there partially for the job and partially because
that's where you're looking up your own stuff too.
It's important information for me to know.
Yeah.
You're looking up important information for you to know.
Very true.
Muckboot has been here the multiple times things have been like, oh, you're very, very new to being a living nebula. Muckboot's not going to say it out loud to you because Muckboot's been the new kid on the block. You don't want to announce you're the new kid on the block. So yeah, you go study your forefathers and your 4-starers.
4 nebulas.
Yeah, your 4. Yeah. You
Yeah,
go.
4 stars. That's exactly it.
I also know it's going to be good for you to be doing that because you're not going to get bored.
I just noticed.
You'll stay interested in it, so you'll keep doing it and not be causing any problems.
Yeah, that's
Not
very
be going to a bar.
Yeah, exactly.
Never seen a drunk living nebula. I don't want to.
I kind of do.
You thought I was full of hot air before when I'm sober. Oh boy.
What did you say to Eve?
Well, yes, he would like to step outside. So she drops Muckboot off in the history section. And you've got, translation devices set up, to allow you to read it all. And she lets you know, you can access the physical books, in typical librarian, be careful with them, whatnot. Some of them are quite old. I mean, all the information in them is preserved in numerous fashions, so. And, you're in a little room and you've got a computer console if you need to access anything like that. And then she will leave off with Ebe to the astronomy section.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll go ahead and just take like a physical copy of a book written by the philosopher while looking up the public information on computer.
There's a fair number of books with him listed as the author. There's also a lot of the books where he's like one author that contributed to it.
Well, like I'll take something he wrote philosophically, since he's called the philosopher. I'll look for something that's the subject he claims to be about.
He has entire volumes on kind of basic morality and where basic morality comes from and why it is so important. And how it can vary so much from culture to culture.
That's going to be my question: is does it coincide with our idea of morality?
And it will be important to find out, since he's kind of the leader. Kind of like the Pope is the leader of, Vatican City. Even though technically he's not, but he is.
I think he's considered the head of state.
But I would doubt that the Pope makes like the informed economic decisions of Vatican City. I bet he has people that do that, but he is the leader. Like the decisions are probably made. A committee presents it to him or something like that. But anyway.
Oh yeah.
It's the idea of like, you are the spiritual leader of your people. I'm going to read how you lead them while also studying the things that need to be studied.
You find books he's written on different forms of government. How different forms are. Well, you find a book entitled something along the lines of like The Perfect Government or The Perfect Form of Government. But it kind of breaks down how what's the perfect form of government is going to vary depending on how developed the people are, the situation the people find themselves in,
The needs of the people form what the government needs
right.
to be.
The city-states, going from city-states to empires, comparing that to like feudal states.
Most importantly, it's not a cookbook, right?
No. You have not seen where he has a cookbook.
Would it be possible to? I don't know if I'm stepping on Muckboot's toes here, but would it be possible for Muckboot to try to like create a quality, like some kind of like understands the philosopher quality based on what's going on here? Is that a
He could definitely make that. He could definitely make that attempt if he wanted to.
Muckboot is definitely doing that, but also this is part of the hunt for Muckboot.
Okay.
Because if the philosopher sees that I'm attempting to understand, the philosopher is more likely to go in line with something that agrees with him. Therefore, if you're friends with the guy who owns the yard you're trying to hunt in, you're more likely to be allowed to hunt in that yard.
Gotcha.
Like, oh no, the deer has stepped in someone's yard. Oh, this is Tom. I know Tom. Tom will let me in the yard.
Yeah, right. That is.
It's more of, I know he's going to be looking at what I'm doing, so I'm going to do things that when he looks at them, he knows I'm making an attempt.
So yeah, you dig through and.
But yeah, I'll certainly make a roll and attempt to understand where the philosopher's coming from.
Generally speaking, particularly in relation to like a galactic, spanning civilizations, he doesn't seem to be a real big fan of the overarching empires. And he gives all these examples of how your smaller cultures then such a thing will get neglected and whatnot. So he's kind of a fan of breaking things down into smaller states. There's not a lot of absolutes with his philosophy because the universe is just too complex for that. And you get into how the current setup is, and the current setup is there's lots of independent. Some of them call themselves kingdoms or star empires or leagues or federations. There's a bunch of different ones. The Hawks that he has organized are kind of a galactic peacekeeping force more than anything. So there's certain agreed upon, laws in space, kind of like there is in the oceans, that everybody, or at least most everybody, has agreed to, and that's kind of what he enforces. Outside invaders, pirates, that sort of thing. That's what the Hawks concentrate on. So he is the head of this peacekeeping force, and this one world you're on, is the one that he had settled on and kind of built up. So it's his. And there's certain sentient rights that have to be observed. All in all, it's not too different than, say, Earth back home, at least as Earth is on paper. Some of the smaller states have, reputations for being manipulative or going with the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law. You do get the impression that the philosopher is a big fan of personal freedom. Thought, expression. They don't exactly have freedom of the press as we'd have here. Though they have a freedom of expression. It's like they've gone through that phase where you had your social media type stuff and fake information and all that and have found ways to cope with it.
Interesting.
Because, it's not new to them. Education is very important to him. Where most rulers only want their population to be educated enough to keep the machines running. This culture seems to appreciate education just for its own sake. But, he is a philosopher. Yeah. But One thing you don't see references to going, studying this place, there's not a lot of monuments. Where ancient kings would build stuff to show how fancy they are, you don't really have that here. The ones you have tend to be memorials to, this disaster here, or something to like the veterans and victims of the war when Archagen invaded, stuff like that. Is there any other specific like parts of the personality you're trying to glean?
Honestly, he's been alive so long. Kind of like the direction he's pushing for currently, and to see if it's like maybe look at something super early and see if it's pushing in the same direction as something super later.
Is Muckboot familiar with the basic ideals of socialism?
He would know. He would know a little bit about it, just because, like, I have spent time on Earth. I have heard people say, call someone a socialist. I looked up kind of the general, what is a socialist?
Some of those ideals are laced through his thing. Not the violent revolutionary part, but the building things up to a level where you can take care of everybody. And that seems to be constant through his whole run. But it's a slow build up. As he keeps pushing technologies to improve to where food production is not going to be a problem. And you poke around a little bit, you realize that his planet here is completely self-sufficient if it needs to be. It does export and import stuff, but if it needed to, it could be completely self-sufficient and keep everybody fed and the basics of life taken care of. I think kind of like the Federation from Star Trek, where they didn't bother using money anymore because you can replicate whatever you need. The stuff that was legitimately rare tended to be stuff that only governments needed. The fuel for starships, that sort of thing.
All right.
From a human standard, there's a hodgepodge of different.
But the overarching idea is make sure every single thing can exist isolated.
Yes. Now, not all the individual states in this galaxy, necessarily follow his plan like that.
But the idea seems to be singular freedoms, but making sure there are things in the background to make sure that you are sufficient enough in all your needs to push for that individual allowances.
Right.
Okay.
Help take care of everybody else, but try to make sure everybody is capable of taking care of themselves. You don't find records of any war that, like, the philosopher was pushing into a war to gain more territory or enforce a particular ideal on somebody. He tends to take slower, more methodical steps to influencing, people he disagrees with. Now, he sicks the star or the hawks on people that piracy. People committing outright, genocide or other crimes against. Well, they would call it crimes against humanity. Crimes against sentience. Now, Eve.
Yes.
You are looking for kind of the scientific explanation of your people?
Maybe more, honestly, more. I know before I was talking about the whys and hows of my existence. But I think I feel like Eve's primary concern would be more more philosophical and sociological. Really, specifically, he's still caught up on the issues of guilt for past crimes. He's still concerned about being wanted for star crimes for what the Maniac Star had done, and prevailing thought about whether or not about the extent to which Eve is culpable or responsible for making up for what the Maniac started, specifically to the Anat, but to anyone else, because I can only imagine that the Anat were not. They may have been the Maniac Star's final victims, but certainly not the Star's first. I would assume.
From a strictly like legalistic point of view, that's going to vary from every sort of government. But I imagine Eve's looking more from the moralistic, philosophical.
Yes. Absolutely.
Eve's concern is Eve responsible for
Yes.
what the Maniac Star did, even though Eve does not remember being the Maniac Star. Let's see. Reading up on the living nebulas. Everything you read kind of refers to the the stars that the nebula condenses into as being its offspring, and when those stars expand into a nebula, that's also looked at as kind of being the offspring. You find one or two people that theorize that it's more like butterflies. The nebula creates the stars like a butterfly laying eggs, and then the star becoming a nebula is like chrysalis or whatever. Metamorphosis. None of these books are written by living nebulas, so you don't really know.
Sure. Well, that might be even more important because I think Eve might actually value the opinion of mortals more than that of other cosmic entities such as Eve self.
The bit you find where the philosopher speaks on it. His is more of a weighing of both those main options, and in the end makes no clear declaration of which side of the debate he would come down on.
But the idea of comparison to a butterfly is new to Eve, so Eve would certainly reflect on that quite a bit. And also the idea of offspring might be new. Actually, those are both. Though I think both those concepts would be new to Eve at least. So lots of food for Eve to consume, or at least wrap Eve's gaseous form around.
All right. Meanwhile, bar hopping.
Mm-hmm.
How heavy a drinker is Bloodthorn?
Otherwise known as tactile learning. I would say she's a pretty heavy drinker.
So yeah, you as Shooting Star have hit a few bars. Some of them you would kind of recognize as a bar if you walked into it. One of you walked into, there's like no chairs or tables. It's like everybody just sort of was walking around drinking and chatting with one another. Almost like how I picture like wine tastings.
Yeah, I was about to say a cocktail party type thing.
Except it's a variety of drinks, and it's mostly casual clothes. But that one was clearly a social gathering. Where in the one that looked more like a bar, you had some people sitting around chatting, and then you had some people that were like drinking in the corners, sort of thing. Give me an awareness roll, if you would be so kind.
Awareness roll.
Nope, that was wrong.
Oh my.
They've changed what the
Make that one.
they've changed what the dice roller looks like a little bit. So
Yes.
I thought I was clicking on something that would give it a +3, but it gave it 3 dice instead.
Not 3 dice.
I'm gonna have to sort out how the dice roller works these days
Yeah, not 1 die.
because
either.
I don't see where I can. I mean, I can roll the dice and just add the difficulty number, but I don't see where the thing is. Ah, advanced. It's listed. The old dice roller is listed under advanced dice roller now. Okay,
Yeah.
I've got it sorted now. But anyway, rolled a 4 plus 3, so that's a 7 on their roll. 8 because they'd have
did not
8
get
for their
that.
specialty. Okay. Well, then don't worry. Nothing's wrong.
Blissfully unaware.
You are indeed unaware.
It'll be like shooting star. You hold this in your mouth long enough, the taste changes from bourbon to vodka. Or something like that.
And this one's got a worm in it. And when you've had all the alcohol you didn't drink, the worm comes back out. That's how you know you need to stop. Gotta be careful on Alien Worlds.
I have another character that needs a worm like that.
I know people that need that. But, so how much carousing do you do?
I mean, a little bit. And, we do sort of pay attention to what if we, can pick up anything about the culture.
Varies on which bar you're in. Like the kind of cocktail party style one. It's a relaxed atmosphere. You realize this is their equivalent of a singles bar. You're intentionally coming in and just kind of mingling with people, just chewing the fat, just seeing if you hit it off with anybody, that sort of thing. And you've got the people that are just sort of there to hang out. You've got the people there that are clearly there looking for some company for just that night.
And I'll whisper to Shooting Star, there's no chairs because they want you to be able to tell how tall your prospective partner is right away.
You don't know if that's true, but it's as good a theory as any.
How tall does Bloodthorn stand out in this crowd?
How tall is Bloodthorn?
I would say she's probably average height for maybe a little bit taller than your average woman, but not much.
Are you in high heels?
She would be, yes. So that'd make her taller.
It varies a lot from species to species. A lot of your kind of basic humanoid builds come out, within 4 or 5 inches of each other. So she's probably middle of the pack. Stars people are pretty much within the human average of height. You see some other species that are, 5 foot seems to be about their average.
Do we pick up on any conversations of local doings or galactic doings?
You overhear some people talking about the news. A couple, you probably at some point you're gonna find a couple guys arguing politics, but it tends to be things like trade embargo this or tariff that or the pros and cons of free trade. There does not seem to be a lot of wars going on in this galaxy.
No, it's useful information.
A few people are talking about piracy here or there. Some world somewhere has had a natural disaster that there's a relief thing going on.
Hopefully, Star isn't too uncomfortable with the piracy talk.
But our impression is that the minor cloud is generally pretty darn peaceful.
Generally speaking, of course, now you're in kind of the center of civilized space too, so out further from this capital in the fringes, you would presume that it gets worse, but if so, it's not to the sort of thing common folks around here talk about, or seem to be that knowledgeable of.
We're among the elitist city folk right now.
Right.
No, that is true. But to use Star Trek as a reference again, think of the Federation.
Right.
Conflicts are always with somebody outside. You had disagreements and stuff on the inside, but very rarely any sort of violence. And that seems to be more or less what they've got set up here. But again, you're on the most advanced planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Bloodthorn will be like, "I'm impressed, bored but impressed."
And that would be something you'd pick up on with the kind of the singles club, as it were. Lots of people have kind of thrill-seeking hobbies, skydiving, that sort of thing. And maybe that's because of a lack of excitement in everyday life.
See, Bloodthorn's not so different.
But and you and Silver Shooting Star would get hit on or asked to dance or this, that, or the other by a variety of relatively similar species. As you finally prepare to head back to your quarters for the night, give me one more awareness roll. Uh-oh. Did we lose Mike? No, there he is.
Temporarily.
You just flickered. Alright, so you rolled a 6. My guy was a 3 plus the 3 he rolled, so that's a 6.
Sorry.
So, oh, no problem. So, marginal success. Just kind of casually, as you step out, of one of the bars, you glance over and you see. Shoot, I know I named that species, but I don't have my notepad in front of me. You see somebody clearly from the hegemony. The distinctive pointed ears and that kind of blue-green skin tone. Dressed in, seems like it looks like local casual clothes. Like I said, you just kind of see, it's a little more than out of the corner of your eye. You clearly identify. But you're coming out of one set of doors, he's going in another set of doors,
I'll go talk to him if I can, if he's not already out.
All right, you walk down to the shop that he was ducking into, or that he was stepping into.
Okay.
And it's a clothing shop or some kind of store. Clothes, accessories, that sort of stuff.
Did he see me? Or he's probably following me.
You couldn't tell for sure because he was turning towards the door as you caught sight of him.
The reason I ask is I may sneak up. I've got stealth. I'm going to try and sneak up behind him if I can.
All right, give me a stealth roll.
That coordination plus stealth?
Yes, coordination, and then your stealth would add 1 to that. Or 2 if you have expert.
Oh, damn.
Oh, that's pretty good. All right, you got a major success because he got an 8 on his roll.
And I just want to sneak up right behind him.
Kind of creepily in his personal space behind him.
Yeah, definitely in his personal space. And I want to whisper into his ear, "You left before we had a chance to dance."
He just sort of freezes for a second when he realizes you're right behind him. I mean, anybody would if you snuck up behind him and whispered in their ear.
Right.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Do I know you?
I guess not. But I know the hegemony.
Well, yes, that's my place of origin.
I have questions.
Well, I'm kind of shopping at the moment, but what would you like to know?
I'll kind of look around. What kind of shop is this? A men's clothing shop or?
Clothes and accessories, just kind of in general.
And I'll try to be all friendly. It's like, what are you shopping for?
A new coat.
And, she'll grab a coat. It's like, I don't know. You might try this one. She'll just try and be friendly and stuff. It's like, but I kind of want to know, how do your people do it? Why do they do it? You were enemies that invaded the minor cloud.
Smaller Magellanic Cloud.
Magellanic Cloud. I always try to add extra syllables, and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna sound like an idiot.
I have to stop and think about it.
But now you gave up on that, and you've managed to come as peaceful visitors.
Well, it's been a century since the war. I mean, that may not be a significant amount of time for our Lord Archigen or the philosopher here, but amongst people, that's a generation or two ago. And I'm attached to the diplomatic mission here, so I've been living here for a while.
I understand. It's just I've personally seen the kind of destruction your armies bring, even if they're well-meaning. Because I'm not trying to make an enemy here.
Much like predatory animals have to kill to eat, it's unpleasant but necessary.
And that destruction leaves a bit. Well, no. My point is that leaves a bitterness that lasts many generations.
Yes, along the border close to the gateway we use to come and go. Yes, there is much bitterness in some of those places. But here in Galaxy Center, the hegemon we never pushed in this deep. So the locals here, it's a historical. They spend a week in their schooling studying the history of that war.
That's a surprise. But Kira didn't learn that in her Kira didn't pick that up in her tactile learning. But I do think this jacket looks good with your skin.
Oh well, thank you. He noticeably checks the price tag. I'll just go try this on then.
I don't think if I don't suspect that I'm being deceived in some way, I don't see the need to pester him too much.
All right, we'll give me a willpower roll. Got a major success. Your dice are loving you right now, or the dice rolling.
They are. It'll make me pay later.
Let a fight break out, and then it's ones and twos. You're not completely buying what he's saying. His reaction when you first popped in, it makes you think of other times that you've caught people following you. That expression on that look on their face when they realize they've been made. And while he's been, his delivery's been pretty slick, it feels a little too slick, a little too,
Practice.
not necessarily the particular lines, but like maybe he's had one of those acting classes, improv. Like he's got some practice at improv. So, now like when he talked about the border people, the people along the border being more bitter than these people deeper. Yeah, all that he's probably being truthful about.
He's an RPGer. He knows improv.
But he's definitely trying to keep you calm, and allay any suspicions you might have.
And as he's trying on his jacket, he's probably sneaking out the back door.
Well, he did go back to the changing room, despite the fact that it's just an overcoat.
I think maybe we should follow. I'll pick a garment. A men's coat, another overcoat to try on myself in the changing room.
Okay. You step back to the changing rooms. All the doors are cracked open when you get back there.
Are the hegemony, were they green or blue?
They could vary between the two.
What color was he?
Kind of a sea green. So kind of bluish green.
And if there's an attendant, I'm saying, did you happen to see my green friend come back here?
No. They have very obviously not taken an improv class. No, I haven't seen anybody.
So,
Though if you wanted to try on that coat, the changing rooms are right over here.
I think I'll pull out my sword. And it's like, where's the exit?
She the worker points to the front door. It's over there.
No, the exit my little green friend went to.
He went out the back door. Look, I don't know how bad y'all's breakup was, but it's not worth something like this. He was just trying to avoid. He said he was just trying to avoid an incident.
I'll put the sword under his chin. It's like, and that's right. Don't you ever break up with me. And show me the back door.
He takes you straight to the back door.
Well, I'll run out, see if I can spot my friend.
Sure, give me a awareness roll.
Still not bad.
You step out. You think you hear what you don't see him, but you think you hear what direction he's running.
Okay, I'll run that direction.
You get out onto the street. Just in time to see somebody. You don't catch his face because he's getting in a vehicle, but it's definitely somebody in that same colored coat that he'd been wearing. Gets into into a vehicle that then flies off. Think flying car type stuff.
So I can't chase him. Damn. Okay, well I guess our carousing's probably done. But I'm gonna make a mental note of what this guy looked like in case I run into him back at what would you call the place that we were at? A Citadel or
That's as good a term for it as any. The Capitol building.
Because if I happen to spot him again, I'm going to continue this conversation. And if I don't, he got lucky. But I think at this point we should head back to the.
Yeah, Silver Shooting Star agrees. You pulled a weapon on somebody. They may call the police. This is a pretty civilized area. Just a second, get these weird.
Yeah, it's like, but I'm sure that when we get back, Muckboot will tell us all about how he learned that it's bad to pull weapons on people here in the city.
I don't think Muckboot would need to tell you that. I think that's going to be inherently known.
You obviously haven't been to the same cities I have.
So yeah, you meet back up with Shooting Star. Y'all flag down a cab. Head back to the Capitol building.
And I'll be like, with Shooting Star's like, oh hey, do you like this coat?
Did you run out of the building with the coat that you were holding?
Without thinking about it, I'm sure. I probably should pay for this.
Shooting Star volunteers to take it in and pay for it. And comes back with stories of local security officers, and they're talking to the lady, or to the guy, rather. So yeah, you get back to the Capitol without any trouble. Muckboot, Eve, is there anything else that you were looking for?
I think that'll do it for Eve.
I think I still need to make my roll to see if I have a.
Oh, that's right, because you were trying to come up with an actual temporary quality. All right, let's see here.
Which sadly, I think is going to be intelligence based.
Yeah, it is.
What if I just coordinated my research perfectly?
Well, let me think about that. No. Being able to juggle
Darn.
the books is not going to help you. Alright, that's effect.
But I've split the pages so fast. I must have gotten all the information.
I labeled my little tabs on my book. But they're written in pencil, so they're hard to see in dim light. Alright, let's see. Running, swimming, climbing, bending, blocking. This would be after. Alright, so this would be more or less how maneuvering works. Because you're trying to create a quality. So yes, you will need to roll your intelligence. Versus... Let's see here. Interactions. Alright, give me a roll on your intelligence.
I would like to pop a determination point.
What are you tapping?
The quality. I'm so old.
Ah.
Because, relatively speaking, I've lived not longer than a lot of species, but long enough to know, like, how mentalities change over time. But you do kind of form your core at the start. Because there's certain things Muckboot cares about that he knows he's probably wrong about, but they were ingrained in him since childhood, so it's a thing he always cares about.
Mm-hmm. That seems reasonable. You're using your life experience to know how to deal with people, so fair enough. So that's a +2.
Oh,
Ooh, you lucked out with my roll.
that I did.
So a 1 on the dice, lift the difficulty at 5. You rolled a 10. So that's a massive success.
I used my average intellect and my experience to do something okay.
So you can activate. You have a quality that you can activate 3 times.
All right.
And we'll call that quality. Understanding the philosopher. You think you've got to read on kind of who he is just as a person. This is what he cares about. This is kind of how he does things. And then you and Eve can head back to the capital. The archivist sees you out. Tells you how nice it was. Muckboot tells you how nice it was to meet you. Eve, she is honored to have met you. She'll be telling people for years about the day she met. A living nebula.
I will politely ignore the racism.
Well, it's just mild preference.
Right, but it's like the thing you've never met before, or the thing that people have met before, but it's kind of like a mythical thing. You're like, I'm not really sure how many of those there are. It's just a little bit in there, and it's okay. It happens.
You're from colonial America. You've seen worse.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
So yeah, y'all walk back to the capital or flag down a cab, whichever way y'all want to do it. I say flag down. You just put in the little comm units. Need a cab. So, y'all burned up most of an afternoon doing that. You've got your more official meeting with the philosopher later that day. But you have a chance to, get home, wash up, change clothes, kind of catch everybody up on where everybody else is. Does Bloodthorn mention pulling a blade on somebody?
She might mention it to Muckboot.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You did what? That is, that ain't exactly a thing you're supposed to do.
Okay, is everybody else hearing Curtis? Because I'm not hearing Curtis.
I am not, unfortunately.
Did you know?
Wait, you're not hearing him?
No, he's like cutting in and out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He started cutting out for me now. Okay. I think we may soon hear a disconnect noise.
Well, I won't because my side's in streamer mode.
Ah.
I get low system resources when I'm logged into all of the.
Okay. Well, you seem to have snapped back.
Same. Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah.
I can hear.
Sorry.
Yeah, mine OBS dipped like the kilobytes per second that it's either sending or receiving dipped real low a few minutes ago. To think of it, let me turn off a couple of things that I don't need.
But I think it's a. I suspect because I get the system resource message all the time when we play. I suspect it's a resource issue.
Okay, but we're back now. So, let's see. But you were telling her that that's not a thing you're supposed to do.
Yep.
And I'll just look Muckboot dead in the eye, and it's like, they were hunting me. I hunted back.
I appreciate you trying to word it in a way I like. But you understand that spying and hunting ain't the same things. And we are in war with these people currently. So normally I'd be okay with this. But we are in someone else's house trying to politely gain information. We need to limit or just not do things that would make us look bad. And running into a store, brandishing a weapon in a store, and then running out of the store with goods is, well, it's called theft where I'm from.
We paid for it. I mean, we had to go back, but
Right, you committed theft and then felt bad about it, and you went back and paid for it. It's still definitely not something you should have done.
I was just responding to an emergency. We can agree that you disagree with my response.
I do, in fact, disagree with illegal actions, yes.
I'm sorry.
I'm glad you think crime is funny, but this is a serious moment right now.
I'll be good. Throw up her hands.
The Count is going to probably eviscerate me. Again.
If anyone asks Ebe what he thinks about others, he'll simply say, "I don't like butterflies." Or I butterfly.
See, Eep gets it.
So y'all have a discussion. The door, the chime on the door to your suite, goes off. Somebody's ringing the doorbell, basically.
Who's at the door?
The speaker next to the door, it's Star. Are you ready
know
for
what? I'll take the second first option.
And Star's like, beg your pardon?
I was afraid it's gonna be the Count.
And you hear a voice, presumably standing there with her. Why were you afraid it was going to be me? We're all going to this meeting.
Same reason as always. Someone's done something that I gotta explain to you.
What did your band of ruffians do?
Oh.
Will someone open this bloody door?
I opened the door.
The Count quickly steps past Star into the room. He's giving everybody the hairy eyeball. All right, no one's bloodied or battered. What happened?
I'll just bat my eyes at him.
Is that the same dress you were wearing yesterday? Oh, this won't do it all.
Oh wait, let me go change.
What had happened was our dear friend, who's now stepping out, had an altercation with one of the, presumably a henchman. I hate to use the word minion, but an underling.
One of his a staff member then.
Yes, who had been following her. But due to the nature of, well, she's a combatant at nature. It
I don't
got
like
Yes,
Eber.
yes. Her lower class upbringing. I understand. Continue.
it became threatening, but not violent.
Oh, well, if she simply threatened a man following her, we can,
It'll be a little more complicated than that overall, but the simplistics of it, yes.
Well, I shouldn't have expected you to be able to keep your people completely under control. This is not the disaster you initially had me thinking it was.
Count, she'll holler from wherever she's changing. Count, I am not a woman to be controlled.
That could have been a quality.
It is.
Oh, never mind.
It's been a bit since I looked at her qualities. So apparently Eve would have a better chance at it than anybody else in the room.
Interesting. Because Eve's not exactly his reputation precedes Eve's reputation precedes. Let's just say that. That's what Eve's been writing on this whole campaign.
When you're a living nebula, non-binary takes on a whole different meaning.
And I'll fill in the Count if he would like to hear some of the basics of the
Yeah, he actually does want.
philosophers.
Oh, that yes.
Yeah, the stuff, a quick, studying their archives and some of the lessons they had about the war, and then also some general information about the philosopher himself. his general thoughts on things.
Yeah, the books you found in this archive did not have. It had the history of the war, but not like detailed battle plans
Yeah,
and stuff like
not
that.
tactics or anything crazy like that.
Yeah.
But
You know, think like a high school, like a little better than a high school history book, but
Well,
they'll go. They might give you the basics of how a big battle went down, but not anything specific. Real specific.
Yeah.
So yeah, he listens to you there. Ask a few questions. He's been researching the philosopher as well. You can access the all the archive information from your room. You don't have to go pawing dead trees.
And
I'll once again state about, making sure that an archive is taken care of physically is also proof of how much they care about making sure it's accurate.
Or making sure it's a convincing lie.
and
Either way, you still need to see it to know.
I'll fill in the count on some of the things I picked up on, and mention that this is very peaceful, genuinely quiet, is the impression, and that some of the people get bored and do thrill seeking and take up dangerous hobbies. It's like, I think they'd find me interesting.
Yeah, take up dangerous hobbies. Looking at the two people that hunt intergalactic monsters for a living.
Well, the Count doesn't do it for a living. It's more of a hobby with him.
Yeah, for him it's sport.
Nobles hunt. They always have. It's a nobleman's pastime. That's why he's so offended by you. While y'all been talking, Star pulled up her little wrist comm thing and has been looking at something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Has something occurred?
No, I'm just looking up the security report on your incident. So it wasn't the man following her that she pulled the blade on? It was a worker in the store? At which point the Count turns back around and fixes his eyes on Bloodthorn.
Bloodthorn?
Trying to sabotage his mission?
I needed information.
From a haberdasher? There were hats in the store, correct?
Yes. All sorts of stuff.
Okay, good. From a haberdasher?
Threatened the haberdasher for no reason?
I would not have heard him.
Now, granted, from the footage, he was allowed to escape through a back door, so I guess it is vaguely...
And Star let you read the
blade
report.
is not-
The haberdasher. He was approached by a guy going, "Hey, an ex of mine has just walked in here. Is there a back door I can step out of? Just so there's no incident." So the guy led him out the back door, and then Bloodthorn runs up asking.
And I just look at Star and cross my arms. It's like, well, you see, this all just comes down to a domestic quarrel that the haberdasher got in the middle of.
I'm going to choose not to report, knowing who you are, because I know that those blades are non-lethal. If you'd actually threaten, and she looks at Muckboot, if your people actually threaten somebody with a lethal weapon, I am an agent of the law. I'm going to have to respond to that. Just for future reference.
Yes, I completely agree and understand that. Though, it's at least warranted that he lied. Presumably, Miss Bloodthorn, I don't think you've dated this man.
No, it was a very brief relationship.
The Count has turned away from you all and is just pinching the bridge of his nose.
I assure you, Count, I'm not happy about this either. But I also didn't want you to not know about it.
Your honesty is noted. It is your redeeming quality.
Oh, and here was the fact that I thought I was a well-read animal.
I'll just look at all of us like, so who's hungry?
Right.
I'm hungry for a formal meeting.
And the
where
count's
we
like,
can all
this,
sit in the same place.
and the count's like, this is a meeting. This is not a meal. There may be wine, there may be refreshment. I don't know what the custom is. Star, looks at her thing like she's checking the time. Well, if everyone's ready,
We do need to get going.
you step out in the hallway, and there's a couple of the Count's aides were waiting out in the hallway. They seem relieved when everybody steps out in one piece.
The Count does know I can kind of half die and come back, so fair enough.
Well, the Count does not currently have his swords on him. They are actually strapped to the back of one of his aides at the moment.
Of course, he's got a squire.
His squire.
It's the noble thing to do.
So Star escorts you down to where the meeting's taking place. None of you are being allowed to carry weapons in. Muckboot, did you currently have your rifle with you, or had you left it in your room?
I tend to always have the rifle nearby.
Okay.
So long as it is allowed to be there.
Yeah. Well, going into the meeting itself, you're going to need to leave that out. The Count sword bearer, for instance, is not going into the meeting. He's right outside. He's staying outside a little waiting area. The Count tells you can leave your gun with him.
Oh, I thank you for the hospitality, Count.
And what you know of the Count, he wouldn't have somebody, even though he doesn't like you, he wouldn't have somebody mess with your weapon. That's just an ungentlemanly,
And he still respects the Hunter's Guild, and it is a Hunter Guild rifle.
Yeah,
I would not think
true.
he would be disrespectful to Guild weaponry.
Yeah. But it's not like he's going to steal it from you as a prank or anything either. It's...
Yeah.
And, the sword bearer takes it and, goes and kind of stands kind of at attention in the corner or up against the wall. You're ushered into it's kind of a very large study. The desk is covered with, the desk has like, an input device on it. It's got a holographic screen, though he just say, turns the screen off basically as y'all are walking in. There's several chairs. There are, old style books. In a variety of bindings and styles, probably all over his galaxy. It's the library shelves on the side are kind of two-storied. It's a very elaborate study. And there are a variety of chairs in a table. As you come in, like I said, he shuts down the monitor, the little holographic monitor on his desk, and he gets up and walks around. So y'all are all sitting around this table and in comfortable chairs. And he just starts off, greets everybody, Count. I guess he would greet Muckboot as Hunter Supreme. That's really the only title Muckboot has. Then he greets Eve, and then he greets Bloodthorn and Silver Shooting Star. Both of them just by their names.
We don't have fancy titles.
Well, gentle beings, I know you've come a very long way to speak to me. And while I kind of know what it is, generally what it is you wish to discuss, why don't you tell me just to make sure that I have the right of it?
Does the count pick up immediately or wait for one of us?
Well, he was supposed to kind of take a little bit of the lead in the diplomatic stuff, or at least be your top advisor in it. So yeah, if you hesitate even a second, then he's there laying out the invasion as it had happened. The fact that we've come here seeking aid and information. We know you've repelled these people before. And he just gives the real bare bones version. The amount of death, the destruction of this or that, world. Almost entire populations being deported. Them having no idea really what they're doing or where they're going with those people. The philosopher nods. They took many captives. In their attempted invasion of the smaller cloud here. All of which they seem to be shipping back to their home galaxy. The Hawks had managed to retrieve some folks before they were sent through the portal. One or two Hawks ventured through the portal to try to get back people that were already gone through, but none of them came back. Most likely there was a large military force on the other side of the gate. But he is not entirely certain what he'd be using, what he would be needing or wanting all these people for. Mugboot, he looks to you. You say aid and information. What sort of aid are you wishing?
Well, frankly, with this standard push you've made, we're curious mostly as to how it was achieved, but also if any form of physical aid would have been allowed after being here and seeing the agreements made. That may not be an option. I see.
They are currently. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, we did not know of the current political situation between the two of you. We did not know if you were actively still combating, or if some form of agreement had been made up until this moment.
We are technically still operating under a ceasefire. It's a ceasefire that's been in effect for 85 years now. And clearly we've had some diplomatic relations. We have diplomats in their galaxy, though they have been unable to discover very much. Their movements are very curtailed, but they have not been mistreated or anything.
Our other pressing question was, to be frank, if we could achieve a similar result. Or if there was a circumstance that caused your results that would require some near impossible effort to achieve.
Your galaxy is more fractured than this one.
After reading, I completely agree.
The Hawks had been, he goes, and I don't mean this as a criticism. It's a much larger galaxy. Some of the cultures are much younger. And you do not have an organization like the Hawks. They are acting as as protection to younger cultures and as a peacekeeping force. But effectively, their initial invasion hit very hard on the sectors of the galaxy close to the gateway. But where your galaxy has had to, the individual governments have had to come together and sort of hash out mutual defense plans. The Hawks were able to hit the area immediately as a sort of forward guard, and there were already agreements and battle plans essentially in place for us to marshal almost the entirety of our galaxy's military forces and security forces. So we were able to start rolling in troops or ships almost immediately. So they were not able to get the foothold. They jumped in and took many systems, but had not had a chance to really fortify and get their supply lines up and running. So in that manner, your people are already sort of on the back foot. As far as dealing with the remembered, the tattooed, branded. Some of them sport impressive powers, but my Hawks are the equals to most of them. Where I know from what I've heard and what I've learned from the Singularity League, I know there are many empowered individuals in your galaxy as well, but they don't seem to be organized into any sort of unified force like the Hawks are, or like the branded portion of the hegemony's military.
So, if the hegemony restricts your ambassadors' movements in their galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
how did they engender the trust to let you allow them to roam free in your home?
I'm not certain trust is necessarily the term I would use. The diplomats are not allowed to simply roam this galaxy on a whim. They have free reign to come and go as they please here on Galaxy Central. Truthfully, because I want them to see how we live. Perhaps it will be better than their system, or perhaps they'll at least say that we don't need their Archen's way of doing things here. It's more of a, I guess you'd say, a long shot of that really having any effect, but
No, but I understand what they're saying.
But as Muckboot said, we do have some, like I said, it's a ceasefire, not really a full peace agreement. But I'm afraid sending military aid to you would be a violation of it.
Would non-military trade or the transport of refugees to available areas break your ceasefire?
No, I would not. No. If we if you needed us to take in refugees, no, that would not be violating anything. And while I'm sure they might fuss, sending humanitarian aid would not be either. Though there's a lot of travel time getting to our gate. And then my understanding is it's like there's the Singularity League. There's a lot, much space you have to cover. There's a lot of travel time sending or receiving anything.
Yes, it would not
Yeah,
be
it
a
did take a
perfect
while.
system. It's I would prefer, in a worst case scenario, some escape than us be held at a door we didn't know was closed. Because if we are not able to unify quickly enough to push out the invasion, I would rather the people continue to survive, spirits intact somewhere else.
I see what you're saying. Well, yes, we do have extensive plans we can set into motion in case of refugees. Obviously, you could not empty your entire galaxy into this one. Though those people most on the front line, yes, push comes to shove, we could take them in.
Well, now this formal meeting is just between us and the philosopher, correct?
Correct.
Then I will also push that, frankly, if the hegemony succeeds there, it will most likely brandish a confidence and a supply of materials and bodies they do not care to waste, that it could apply extra pressure towards you in the future.
Yes, them taking your galaxy would indeed be strategically.
Because, as they proved at the entrance, it's not like they aren't willing to commit military actions in your space. They just want to keep it as slick as possible.
Plausible deniability and that sort of thing. Yes, the ambassador still doesn't have any good answers for that. Though I suspect he is probably in honest ignorance of whatever happened.
Kira will open her mouth, and I'm sure the others will shut her up.
I mean, let her say her piece. I mean, I'm not gonna stop her.
The count doesn't notice her open her mouth. It'll depend on what
Yeah.
comes out, how he reacts.
They did send one of their men to follow me and Silver Shooting Star as we explored the city.
Philosopher nods. I see. Did this man threaten you in any way?
No, not directly. He was just following.
Oh. That's rude, perhaps, but not overly suspicious given the circumstances.
Then he broke up with me.
Mm-hmm. It's like he's trying to figure out, okay, this must be some expression I'm just not getting. Translator's not quite getting that.
What?
If you glance over the count, you can just see his jaw tighten up. But other than that, he gives no outward sign. At this point, you hear a little commotion outside the philosopher off his study's door. You hear Star's voice, telling somebody there's a meeting going on. You'll simply have to wait. The other voice gets a little bit louder. And maybe even sounds a little familiar to some of you. The philosopher looks at the door. Just tells it to open, and it's open. And you see the Hegemon's ambassador out there arguing with Star. And when the door opens, he turns and takes a step towards the door, and Star just arm out, against the door frame, just physically barring the door. And kind of scowling at him, but not saying anything else, she glances over her shoulder back at the philosopher. Let him in. She steps aside. The ambassador comes in. He's got 4 aides behind him. At this point, everybody give me an awareness roll. For no particular reason.
No reason.
No reason at all. 8 is the number. 8 is the number you want to beat.
Dang! Look at me.
Well, some other people can notice the thing.
Yeah, you're focused on the ambassador. Let's see, was that... Okay, Mike rolled a 10. Okay, he was the first one. Okay. So Eve notices, Bloodthorn notices. So they come strolling in. Bloodthorn, one of the aides with him, you have seen that man before.
Oh, I'm sure I have.
Not in person, though. You saw him through somebody else's head.
Oh.
But he's not dressed the same as he was.
What is his name?
Is that Satrap?
Satrap Scar. Now, while before, when you saw him, he was in like the gold boots and the bright red long coat.
Right, but now he's dressed as an aide.
Now he's dressed just like any of the other aides.
Isn't that interesting?
And the ambassador starts talking to the philosopher, but he must strongly object.
I'm gonna try and
To this clear military, military meeting violation of this, or at least the spirit of disagreement. He's going on.
I'm gonna try and position myself so that if Scar tries something, I am in a good position to intervene. Maybe, hopefully, without being too conspicuous.
Well, you'll be standing up out of your chair. Y'all are all sitting around a table.
Okay. I will stand up.
Okay.
It's just polite to, stand up to greet new guests.
As you stand up, the person that you're recognizing as Scar steps a little bit past the ambassador. Making it look like, you suddenly stood up. He's just positioning himself between, the higher ranking person. The other aides start to kind of spread out just a little bit.
Yeah, this is not going to end well.
Does Bloodthorn say that, or is that just Curtis thinking that?
You know what? I'm going to broadcast that telepathically to my teammates.
Okay.
What makes you say that?
This is Scar.
No, I look and go, and to confirm.
Yes, when you because I believe Bloodthorn had shared that image with everybody earlier. So yeah, then when you really focus on him, yeah, that looks like the Satrap. And he is very obviously disguised as, a peon.
Muckboot will say, "Oh, wait a minute. Oh, Satrap, ain't that you? Oh, loved your gift when we came in this quadrant for the first time."
The philosopher has not gotten out of his chair. He just looks at the ambassador and then looks at Satrap. Do you think you're being clever?
Wait, was that you're being clever to me or Satrap?
No, the philosopher said that to the ambassador and the Satrap.
Okay.
You know, basically, do you guys think you're being clever? At which point, one of the other aides that nobody's really paying attention to at this point, sort of runs and jumps, almost like he's belly diving onto the table in front of all of you. As he does that, Scar's hands flare up and a little energy wall comes up between him and the ambassador and the table. And the guy belly flopping on the table kind of explodes. Everybody give me coordination rolls.
Can I spend my coordination to defend the philosopher?
Are you just wanting to kind of jump in front of the philosopher?
I want to make sure the philosopher's okay. I'll jump in front of the philosopher. I'll take
right.
one for the intergalactic team.
All right.
I was going to try and do the same thing as well, but we probably can't both.
Interposing. Here we are. You can choose to give up your next panel in order to jump in front of another character within range. Well, this is an area thing, so all of you are being targeted anyway. But yeah, y'all can dive in front of the philosopher to give him a bonus on his roll or whatever.
All right.
All right, is everybody giving me coordinations?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Oh no! I rolled a 1.
Oh, well. Good thing you're the pinnacle of coordination.
All right, so the explosion goes off.
Barely made it.
So let's see. Curtis got a 6. That's not very good.
Nope.
Eve is not much better.
Oh, yes, that's 7. 10 was the number to beat. So a major success against Eve, a massive success against. A major. If I can talk, massive success against Eve. Muckboot, I'm going to say that you succeed in basically throwing yourself across the table and kind of tackling the philosopher. Down to the ground where the table would be partially shielding the both of you. As you're doing that, the philosopher has, as all this is going on, the philosopher's throwing his hand up to do something. Bloodthorn and Ebe, as well as Count TeknoAXE. Can't forget that he's here. Energy fields, some kind of shimmering energy appears kind of right in front of you as the explosion is washing over you. So you're thrown back out of your chairs, but you're not physically injured. Silver Shooting Star at the far end of the table doesn't get this protection. He gets blown across the room, hits the wall, and drops in a heap. You see him twitch a little bit, so you're pretty sure he's still alive. So there's a moment while the smoke is clearing, and all of you that have been knocked prone can proceed to get back up, and then we will roll initiative.
Okay.
Kira will look at the philosopher, and I'll tell him, it's like, I believe your ceasefire has come to an end.
All right, so Eeb's.
I rolled a 1 again.
All right, so Eeb's initiative is 6. Muckboot is an 11. Bloodthorn is a 7. How do I keep losing count TeknoAXE sheet?
Curiosity, are any of these aides the guy that was following me in Silver Shooting Star earlier?
No, you do not recognize any of these guys.
Okay.
Sorry, Gmail is not wanting to cooperate. Alright, now I got TeknoAXE's stats handy. Alright, his coordination is quite high. Well, quite decent. Alright, so the count is at a 10. And then Scar. It's got a 7. The other 2 aids. Oh, sorry. I rolled his willpower, not his It's a 5. And a 6. Alright. We are ready to go now. Alright, so top of the order is Muckboot. How do you roll a 1 to be at the top of the order?
How'd I roll a 1 and have the best dodge? It's what my character does.
Clearly. Alright, so what you doing?
Alright. So how many people are in this room for us to fight?
5? Is that right?
Okay, there is all of you guys. The ambassador walked in with 4 aides. One of those aides is the Satrap. One of those aides apparently just blew himself up.
That's right, he did.
And then there's 2 more.
All right. My goal here is not to fight. My goal here is to get the philosopher out safely. So I will ask the philosopher, is there an emergency exit or teleport for you, or do we need to supply you with one?
He sees no need to run.
But if you fight them, it's military action.
Well, they've already.
Pretty sure
I know.
they've started at this point.
That was the joke. But all right then. I'll get up and get ready for a fight.
All right, so you were on your feet.
Can I see the assistant who had the count and my weapon?
Yes.
The door is open.
He has come. The little waiting room was like across the hall from the front of the philosopher's door. But yes, at the sound of the explosion, you can see him coming through the door, and he's still got the count's swords on his back and your gun in his hand. Not holding it like you would to use it, but just holding it. And his eyes go wide at the devastation he sees in front of him.
I will raise my hand up and pull my gun to me.
There's a slight moment of resistance, like when for just a second, he doesn't realize what's happening, and then he sees you, and he just lets go of it and lets it fly to you.
I have my gun. This fight's over.
All right. That was your action.
Yeah. The old man told me I could fight. It's time to shoot things.
The Count, you look over at him. He's kind of sitting. He's getting up, and then he disappears. Muck boot from where you're standing. You see him reappear next to the assistant with the swords. He's, he just unsheaths the swords from the other guy's back.
Makes sense.
Let's see. And then it is Satrap Scar's turn. All right. And he leaps across the table towards a muck boot.
Towards me?
Yeah.
What have I done?
I don't know. Maybe you just look dangerous. So terribly, terribly dangerous.
But all right.
All right. His fists ignite, and this kind of reddish light appears around his fists. Let's see. Prowess plus his specialty. All right, so give me a prowess roll. You need a 9 to beat him.
Uh-oh. That's not good. You know what? I'm a tap a determination point.
All
Using the quality. I don't know things. I don't know what that fiery fist is, but I want to not know.
Fair enough.
So it's going to be on prowess, +2, plus a d6. I rolled a 1. Again.
All right, so that's a total of an 8.
Yep.
Now, to be fair, Scar only rolled a 2 on his dice, so, you know. The dice was not really favoring either one of you.
I'd say the third one in a row I've rolled, the dice are favoring somebody.
Right, so he pops you for 9 points of damage.
I am
What?
immediately out.
My earlier mojo had to come from somewhere.
You're like a mojo vampire. And you said that knocked Muckboot out in one lick.
Yeah, 9 damage is a lot.
Well, yeah. I knew it was a lot of damage. I mean, I knew.
Like, that's 1 point away from destroying mountains.
All right, so y'all see Muckboot, take one of those big red fists across the side of his face. And, he rolls with it some, which is probably why his head didn't get taken off. And he goes falling down. He drops his gun.
So Satrap's fiery fist, bad.
Satrap's fiery fists of fury. Bloodthorn, you're up.
I do believe I was knocked prone, right? So all I can do is get up.
Well, while the smoke was clearing, I said everybody had a chance to stand
Oh,
up.
okay. I will draw my swords and I'll tell the philosopher that I apologize for violating their no weapons policy in his chambers, but I am the sword, and I'm gonna charge Satrap.
All right.
I'm gonna do 2 swipes with my sword.
Okay, this is prowess versus prowess. You missed with the first one because you rolled a 10. He got an 11.
Yep.
And then the second one, you got an 11 and he got a 10. So you hit with one of them.
I hit with one. And let's see how the energy drain does.
All right, he resists that with his willpower, I believe.
Yes. Because I gambled that not many NPCs would have a high willpower.
Okay, you succeeded. And how much do you drain for?
8, because I only hit him with 1.
Okay. All right, so that is 8. Next is Ebe.
All right, so I dropped out for a little bit, so I need to get a reminder of who is currently still standing. I guess Scar is still standing.
All right.
And I think at least one of the aides got taken out by the Count.
No. The Count teleported out and got his swords.
Oh.
He's currently outside the room. Muckboot could see him through the door, appear next to his assistant, and grab his weapons.
I gotcha.
So, you can presume, Muckboot would presume the Count will be back next round.
So does that
All
mean
Ebe saw was him disappear.
So does that? Okay, I gotcha. So does that mean that Muckboot got knocked out before he could get his rifle?
Well, he spent his round pulling the rifle to him.
Oh, okay, that's right. He gets to do
Because he can do the telekinesis kind of thing just for his rifle.
that's right.
He got knocked out before he could fire it.
All right. Well, I think Ebe wants to now. And what's the state of the of the philosopher?
Muckboot had tackled him out of his chair, basically.
That's
while he was
Under the
throwing up like an
bridge.
energy shield around the rest of y'all, trying to protect you.
Oh, okay.
He has not stood up yet. He seems to be fine, if somewhat miffed looking. He does not look happy.
Okay. Well, I would like to be on interpose duty. And yeah, hopefully with my stretching ability, I should be able to protect anyone in the room. I would hope.
Okay,
And I can only do that against one attack in the next round. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay.
Well, basically, what happens with interpose is your buddy's taking a lick. You go, I'd like to interpose. So you jump in front of him, and that takes your action from the next round.
Okay.
Now,
So-
if you want to say that this round you're just getting ready to jump in front of somebody, then you could block another. If you wanted to do that, I would let you jump in the way of somebody else's attack this round. Because there's two more of the hegemon people that get to go.
Yeah. Now, is the shield that the philosopher raised, is he protecting himself?
You did not see it shimmer up around him. It's like he was trying to throw it up around y'all before the explosion could hit you. And he managed to protect everybody except Shooting Star. Shooting Star was on the far side of the table, and the philosopher was getting tackled, and stuff just happened. Star got smacked into a wall. It seems to be unconscious now. Did we lose Mike again? Okay, we lost Mike. Taylor, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. I want to make sure it was not just me having an issue.
Nah, I've yet to hear Mr. Michael.
And I think he's back.
Sorry. So, was the philosopher protecting himself with his energy shield?
You didn't see him protect himself, but he doesn't appear injured, so...
Okay. Well, without knowing anything else, I think Eve would just want to form a kind of like a personal dome over him with his stretching abilities. Knocking over the table if need be. Is that something he can do?
Yeah, you're basically covering up the philosopher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no problem. He's not exactly resisting because like I said, he hasn't gotten up yet. So you're providing cover. Basically, they can't see the philosopher to attack him without going through Eve first.
Sure. Yeah, that would be great.
All right, and then it is the other two baddies. Combatant-wise, you've got Scar, the two other supposed aides. The ambassador's there too, but I didn't bother to roll for him. Alright, so first baddie. He turns... He is going to fire at Bloodthorn because she's attacking his commander. So give me a coordination roll, Curtis. 10 is the number to beat.
And I did well, but not that good.
All right, you got an 8. So it beat you by 2, so nothing special happens.
Did I take a hit?
Yes, you do. It is an energy drain versus your strength.
An energy drain.
So give me a d6 plus your strength versus their power plus a d6. So 10 is the number to beat again.
So they're attacking with a sword, and there's an energy drain.
Bloodthorn attacked with a sword. This guy just fired this like shadowy energy blast.
Oh, okay.
Crap. Well, I can't beat a 10. Not at my best. My strength is
All right, so 6 points of damage.
Okay.
And then the next guy. He actually turns around and looks out the door at Star. Alright, so we got an 11 to hit. Hang on, let me double check exactly how Metal Blast works. I think it's all willpower based to hit and the effect. Yeah, it's just willpower versus willpower, like you were hit. All right, so he got an 11. Star got a 5. All right, so Star takes damage. Kind of screams and grabs her head, but she doesn't fall down. She's still up. Oh, well, she probably rolled an initiative for her as well. Alright, so she goes on a 6. And then the ambassador, while Star is grabbing her head, the ambassador kind of manages to run and duck through the door.
Yeah, little weaselly guy.
And then we're back at the top of the order.
I would like to use this moment to regenerate back to not dead.
All right, so you're activating your regeneration is kicking in.
I go back up to 1 stamina from my -1.
Well, remember you don't keep up with negatives in this game. You're just out.
I'm up to 2 from my 0.
All right, what would you like to do? Because I don't think the regeneration takes an action per se.
I will hold my gun to me and shoot Scar.
Does pulling the gun to you take an action?
It is a power. So I guess it would, yes.
Well, it would have fallen right next to you though, so being able to
But it's
reach over
also
and
a
grab
thing
it.
of like, also technically, yeah, I think it's within arm's reach.
Yeah, it's in arm. It would be within arm's reach. So. So yeah, go ahead and take your shot. Technically, you're probably supposed to stand up. I think you're supposed to stand up before you can do much of anything when you've been knocked prone.
I'll take a -2 modifier.
But yeah, so I'll just go ahead and put the -2 on you then.
Oh, hold on a second. Sorry.
And where I described him leaping across the table at you, that is kind of what happened. But he didn't land on the other side. He's floating there in the air, which is when Bloodthorn ran up and stabbed him.
Stabby, stabby.
All right, Grand Hunter Special Floor Edition comes in at a 12.
Special floor edition. Oh, gotcha. All right, so that's a 12 to hit versus his coordination, which is lower than his prowess. So let me knock that
I
down.
want this to kill the man. I want this to kill the man.
All right, so he rolled a 1 on the dice. Plus his... Oh, wait, he's got aerial combat, so that would be 1 higher. So he'd have an 8, not the 7. Which is still you getting a massive success, though. How much damage did your gun do?
6. I'm about to hear that he's a lot of damage reduction, aren't I?
Yes, I'm afraid that he does. It does no visible damage to him.
Great. Does that stop even the potential?
If the damage and his damage resistance were equal, you could still get the kill effect or stun effect if it was a blaster.
Great.
Basically, as long as the damage is at least 0. If it would go below 0, like, let's just hypothetically say he had 7 damage resistance, and your gun is doing 6, then there's no effect.
Does my specialty make my gun do more damage?
No. That just makes you better at aiming the gun.
I understand. Sadly.
Now, the next time you shoot at him, you might, if you've got any determination left, you might tap a quality and use that to boost the effect of your shot rather than the effort.
Yeah. All right, then. Somebody goes next.
All right, then it's the Count's turn. He teleports in, takes a swing at the Mentalist. Too many windows open. Alright, so his prowess is a 6. He has specialties with his blades. So he rolls a 10 against the Mentalist that just mental blasted Star, who has a prowess of 3. Gets a 6. So he gets a massive success. So that is 6 points of damage to the Mentalist. Knocks off a little bit of damage reduction, so a Mentalist only takes 2. Somebody give me a D6 plus 6 roll for the Count while I roll this guy's strength. Oh, his strength is only 2.
He gets a 12. Oh, wait, no, Curtis rolled before me. He gets an 11.
It's a difference of beating him by 4, beating him by 5, so it makes no difference.
It does to me, because that's my 6.
Fair enough.
It's the only...
So yeah, the Count appears next to him, does the little slice and dice, and the Mentalist falls down, bleeding profusely, because that got a killing result on his sword attack. And then he looks across that boat. I've already dropped one. How about you?
Ouch.
We both know what you just did is not the same as that guy. That's a point at the flying man. With fire hands.
The Count actually gives a little shrug, like, okay, valid point. Then it's Scar's turn. He chooses to ignore Bloodthorn, and he goes after Muckboot.
I'm actually shocked.
Muckboot looks as he's about to die. My reputation precedes me. He knows I'm the threat. Looking directly at the Count. As I fall unconscious for the second time in this fight.
I'm down, I'm up, I'm down.
Is that a 7?
Let's see.
That 7's not from him. Ah, dang it.
No, he's just about to roll.
Oh, dang it.
Alright, 10 is the number to beat.
Oh. Dang. I rolled a 9.
Oh man, close, so close.
I get a second fiery fist to the face.
You keep rolling well enough that this, physically strong AF guy cannot, knock you back any. But you still take the damage. So yeah, he pops you again. The rest of you kind of hear the Count kind of chuckle. Bloodthorn, you're up.
Just boys, 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 and she's going after Satrap again.
All right. Missed the first one, got him with the second one. And you said you do...
Well, I've got to do the check on his will against my...
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that part.
Energy drain.
I forgot about that part. All right, so you succeeded.
He takes 8, and I gain 8.
All right, so that is a total of 16 points of damage you've done to him.
That ought to go through his...
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, his damage reduction is not helping him with that. And he gives like a, like somebody having a spasm, but then he just disappears. Well, he gives that spasm. He starts to fall, and you kind of hear him hit the table, but as he hits the table, he vanishes.
And which one was that again that he hit?
Who, Satrap? Satrap Scar hit Muckboot, and then Bloodthorn hit Satrap Scar.
Okay, that's what I was.
So that leaves us with one, and the ambassador already snuck out, so we've got what, one henchman left?
Yep. And he goes after Ebe.
Okay. Do I get any penalty for basically being kind of immobile since I'm trying to keep the philosopher covered?
Not really. You're laid over him, but you can still stretch a hand out if you want to try to backhand somebody or grab somebody.
Okay. So and how's this aid attacking Ebe?
Do what now?
How's the how am I defending? Is it a ranged attack?
Well, no. I'm sorry. When I said it, I said he was going after Ebe. You go first, then he goes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually I'm going to hope that I would be able to withstand the AIDS attack, and this is the one that's wielding the sword.
No, none of the aides were wielding a sword.
Oh, sorry.
This guy is blasting, but it's an energy drain like Bloodthorn swords.
Oh yeah. You know what? I
Well,
don't
except
wanna,
they use strength instead of they go against strength instead of stamina.
yeah, I don't want to necessarily take a chance. I'll go ahead and throw an elongated punch.
Okay.
So that's gonna be
Yeah, because I doubt your armor's not going to protect you from the beam if he hits.
yeah. Well, let's see how he does. Oh, not a bad roll. Phew.
1 on the dice, so he gets a total of 4. So you beat him by 6, so that's a massive.
Delightful. Oh, fantastic.
How much damage do you do with a punch?
8.
All right. So you smash into him, and you can feel, as soon as your fist hits kind of the shadow emanating out of him, you feel a little resistance, so you know he's got some protection.
Mm-hmm.
But he takes some damage, and then roll a d6 plus your strength versus his strength to see if you knock him. All right, that's a major success on a knockback check. Slamming. Excuse me, a slam check, not knockback.
Excuse me.
All right, so a major or massive, he goes flying out to the next range. So you send him flying across the room. He lands prone over there.
Right on.
Then we are back to the. Let's see. Yeah, because the mentalist is out. So then we're back to the top of the order. Does Muckboot have anything else up his sleeve he can pull out?
Yeah, he's unconscious, and he's pretty much staying that way.
All right. The Count teleports over to where Ebe sent that one guy flying. Oh, and I'm going to give him a +2 for attacking a prone guy, so we'll say 12. And then prone guy, prowess of 3. Damage of 6 versus his strength of 2. Alright, so yeah, he just teleports over there and just pins this guy to the floor with one of his swords. And then he looks over at Eve. Is the philosopher all right?
I'll find out next chance I get.
Well, combat's over, so we're.
Oh, that's right.
And I'll tend to Muckboot, see if I can revive him, and I'll look up at the count. It's like I still took out Scar. Even if he got away.
Did he get away? Is the first question.
The guy's like, I don't see his body. Did you actually eliminate him, or?
He had an escape device, obviously.
Pulls out the sword, starts cleaning the sword out. I can prove I defeated these two. But Ebe, if you glance back, the philosopher is fine. As soon as you get off of him, he stands up.
I express my relief. All right. he does want to know what the what's the if perhaps should we. Abe asks if perhaps we should re-begin discussions.
He looks over at Star, who's shaking off that mental blast. Please fetch the ambassador before he gets very far. Star salutes and heads down the hallway. Of course, more Hawks show up. Doctors tend to Muck Boot, so Muck Boot, you're up with a couple of stamina.
Yay.
If you'd like to, catch your second wind or whatever, you may do so.
I look at the philosopher. So, do we need to continue discussing, or have decisions been made?
We'll need to iron out the specifics.
Completely understandable.
But they run in. Some of the Capitol staff runs in, replaces chairs. The philosopher glances around at a little bit of the damage done to the room, just shakes his head. Star comes back, ambassador in tow. The ambassador looks embarrassed as much as anything. He assures the philosopher that he had no knowledge of what was about to go down.
Of course not.
The Satrap trying to sneak in like that was clearly a warning sign, but the Satrap does outrank him significantly.
Mm-hmm.
The philosopher basically tells him this is clearly a violation of the ceasefire. And the ambassador asks him, or says, I assume that, I'm going to assume that makes me a prisoner then at the moment. The ambassador goes, yes, at least for the time being. But from the sounds of it, the ambassador is only really being restricted to his quarters. His little ambassador compound. His people's movements are going to be restricted now. But the philosopher is not actually breaking off diplomatic communications with the hegemon. But they quickly escort him out. The philosopher tells you these events have definitely opened him up to being able to aid you. He will send a large shipment of supplies back with you as you go, as a sign of good faith or whatever. The militaries here are controlled by their individual governments, so he cannot promise any aid from them. And just to be honest, he wouldn't expect them to send much. At least not without them being kind of in individual contact with your governments. What he is going to do is allow any of the Hawks that wish to go permission. And they are quite, in general, the Hawks are quite opposed to the hegemon's whole method of doing things. The Hawks, kind of like the philosopher himself, is very much let people run themselves the way they want to, within reason. they patrol the spaceways, basically telling people you will behave while you're out here with everybody else. But Star immediately volunteers to go with you.
Cool.
And he will be sending a full diplomatic team, ambassadorial team, whatever you want to call it, to speak with kind of the council that y'all been working for. Let's see, what other tidbits does he drop? When y'all mentioned how the Satrap scar vanished like that, he just sort of nods that he's seen that before. He doesn't know how the man does it. He's not. He doesn't sense any. Any warping of space time. No wormholes opened. He doesn't detect any sort of teleportation, so he doesn't know what's going on there.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. And Mugboot's literally like, oh no, it's that guy.
Is there a count connection, are you thinking?
Mugboot is. There's a person from my home planet who does this.
Oh.
I know what kind of power it is.
Do tell.
He's most likely able to make duplicates of himself that when they're defeated, they simply disappear rather than have a physical body.
Oh.
The hero I know of runs multiple simultaneous copies of himself.
Actually, would Mugboot know that? Because Unison has never made that public knowledge.
Oh, that's right.
Unison has said who he is publicly. I thought Unison's power set was more disclosed after season 2.
Not to the general public, I wouldn't think. Because you let the team know what was really going on. And maybe the government has to know since Unison was part of Spear. But Unison didn't really trust the government either, so...
I was thinking because Mugboot works for Spear. And Spear knows Unison.
Well, no, that's true. After the events that kind of wrapped up season 2, Mugboot was working in conjunction with the government a little bit. So
yeah, and the start of this season was Mugboot doing a job for Spear.
That is true. He was taking Rodan. Shoot, I'm blanking on her name. The Star Forger.
Yeah. Rodan. Rudan. Yeah, Rudan.
Yeah. So okay, well, we'll say while I don't think it was supposed to be public knowledge, Mugboot might have Unison might have let Mugboot in on it. But the philosopher kind of nods his head. Oh, that would explain the lack of any sort of teleportation. Even disintegration would have left some physical remains that I would have picked up on. Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder where the other hymns are.
Oh boy.
So.
And how do we know when we kill them all?
Well,
obviously,
presumably when one stays, we get
there'd be a body when the original's dead. On the upside, and I'll look at Mugboot and the Count. It's like you two each have another chance at him.
I appreciate your ability to look on the bright side. Though making a kill that simply vanishes and it's still out there would be unsatisfactory.
But I believe this concludes our business for the day, and I believe this was a successful mission, Count. believe we've achieved the objective of finding information and aid.
Indeed, despite your team's best efforts. And he just looks at Bloodthorn. I will tell my men to begin prepping our ship.
Thank you, Count.
We didn't say nothing about your ship, but but
My
there's
ship's inside his ship.
no. Remember,
I realize he means multiple ships.
yeah. No, he had his own ship. Your ship was inside the other one you were traveling with, because y'all were part of a.
I realize there are multiple ships, and he was only riding on one of them.
But yeah, it's his personal ship. The one, and then the one that carried y'all is what's left, because the sneak attack getting here destroyed the other one.
Oh yeah.
So the next few days, you have another meeting or two, just to kind of iron out exactly what he's agreeing to. Like I said, he's sending ambassadors with you. You are escorted back to the gateway with a fairly large force of hawks. It's like, somewhere around 300 of them going with you initially. And they're sending out the call for more volunteers. They're not going to strip their territories bare. They're making sure to keep enough on hand to do the job, but they're taking any volunteers that want to go.
What's the status of their ceasefire now that this has happened?
The ambassador has sent word back to his people about what the satrap did. He doesn't word it like that, but that's kind of how the philosopher words it when he's telling it to you. And they're at this point. It's only been a couple days. They're waiting to hear back. He fully expects the hegemony to one, he expects them to stall as long as they can. Probably sending assurances they did not intend any sort of violation of the ceasefire. Maybe they'll blame the satrap. At least to us. He has no doubt that nobody on their side will hear anything about it as far as any kind of wrongdoings. But
Well, I mean, it's the reason I asked is it's not exactly a noble thought, but if their ceasefire collapses, that's a boon for us, because then the hegemony is fighting on two fronts. But
hey, that's how Rome handled the Germans for years. Keep all those tribes fighting each other. I think the Chinese did that with the steppe horsemen a lot too.
Yeah, before Genghis, sure, definitely.
Well, they had some pretty stout. The horsemen would put together some pretty stout empires even before that. But
Oh, okay.
but off and on, it was always a kind of swinging back and forth to who had the most clout. But anyway, so yeah, lots of stars escorting to you. The trip back to the gateway, there's no surprises there. As soon as you go through, you get updates from the Singularity League as to what's been going on in your absence. Because by the time you make the whole round trip, it's probably been a couple of months. Things are not going well. The amount of forces the hegemon has brought to bear seem to be growing exponentially. About the only reason the refugee crisis has not just become completely unmanageable has been the help of Zed. Not only is his ship, the size of Manhattan Island, he can carry a lot of people. They've managed to quickly construct space-worthy habitats that he can then use his ship's gravity manipulation abilities to drag around with him.
And forming their own Battlestar Galactica fleet.
So Zed is able to rescue just massive amounts of refugees at one time. And the ever elusive Uwatha have joined the fray on the side of your galaxy.
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's their galaxy too, so you know. And while their numbers are not large enough to really turn the tide, given just the sheer scope of the front lines, they bring a lot of raw power to bear on particularly important battles. Now, on the plus side, the governments on your side are getting along a lot better because, you know, blind panic does that. The Empire of Minos has been almost completely overrun.
Oh.
But they were taking the worst of it. Just their position, they were taking the worst of it anyway. As soon as there's any kind of communication with you, Muckboot, they want you and the Count back to the Hunter's Lodge ASAP. So we will pick up next time for what should be the big conclusion. We will start up basically giving you the lowdown, you know, as y'all have exchanged information, giving you the lowdown on what's going on, and maybe giving you hope of some way that you can turn the tide in a relatively decisive manner. But yeah, it's 4:30 now, so we need to go ahead and wrap here. Hope y'all had fun. I certainly enjoyed running.
I had a blast.
I think we had a couple folks watching us on Twitch. So thank y'all for coming by. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Hope anybody that comes by and watches or listens to this later enjoyed it, and we will see y'all next time. Again, I was your GM for the day, Jason, and with me has been Mike playing Eve, Living Nebula.
Hey, see ya.
Curtis playing Bloodthorn.
Laters.
And Taylor playing Muckboot.
See you.
And we will see y'all next time.